Traore is very bold. He can challenge anyone.
Il a aussi insulté tous les Africains.
Je crois qu'on a oublié de nous dire merci. C'est pas grave, ça viendra avec le temps.
Il y a une partie qui a retenu mon attention, là où il parlait d'ingratitude.
L'ingratitude, je suis bien placé pour le savoir, c'est une maladie non transmissible à l'homme.
Lui, il est humain, notre ingratitude n'est pas transmissible à lui. Voilà comment ce monsieur voit l'Afrique, voit les Africains. Nous ne sommes pas des humains à ses yeux. Je pense que s'il n'est pas athée et qu'il prie, à chaque matin qu'il se réveille et qu'il prie, il devrait aussi prier les Africains. Parce que c'est grâce à nos ancêtres qu'il existe aujourd'hui une France. Il devrait nous prier.
So the West doesn't just dislike Ibrahim Traore. It wants him erased, eliminated, gone. But why? What makes this young leader of a small African nation such a threat that the world's most powerful forces are obsessed with his removal? What has he done that makes the CIA, French intelligence, and Western-backed mercenaries circle him like vultures, waiting for the perfect moment to strike? It's not just about gold or geopolitics. It's about something much bigger. Traore has broken the script. He has committed the one sin that the West will never forgive. He exposed the entire system of modern colonial control, and worse, he showed Africa that it is possible to fight back. But what does this tell us about the West? Let's find out. The world is not ruled by presidents, nor is it ruled by elected governments. It is ruled by an invisible empire, an interconnected system of financial institutions, intelligence agencies, multinational corporations, and military alliances that dictate global policy. Countries are not truly sovereign in this order. They are either compliant, following the commands of this empire, or they are seen as threats that must be neutralized. Ibrahim Traore understands this reality better than most. He has studied history and seen how African leaders who refuse to submit are either overthrown or eliminated. From the moment he took power, he knew that Western governments, corporate interests, and intelligence agencies would do everything in their power to remove him. His leadership was not supposed to happen. Burkina Faso was meant to remain a controlled asset, its resources quietly extracted, its government dependent on foreign financial aid, its military acting as a pawn in larger geopolitical games. But Traoré refused to play along. Unlike those who came before him, he did not ask for permission to govern his own country. He did not negotiate the terms of his leadership with foreign embassies. He did not seek approval from Western financial institutions before making economic decisions. Instead, he expelled foreign troops, took back control of Burkina Faso's resources, and began dismantling the Western political influence embedded in his country's institutions. In doing so, he sent a clear message. Burkina Faso was no longer a colony, not in name, not in practice. This decision immediately placed a target on his back. Throughout modern history, the West has never allowed a leader to disrupt the global power structure without facing severe consequences. The world has seen this play out repeatedly. Thomas Sankara was eliminated because he sought total independence for Burkina Faso. Patrice Lumumba was assassinated because he refused to let Belgium continue exploiting the Congo's resources. Muammar Gaddafi was executed because he threatened Western financial dominance by proposing a gold-backed African currency. In each case, these leaders believed they were acting in the best interests of their nations. In each case, they underestimated how far the empire would go to stop them. Traoré, however, is not making the same mistake. He understands that his survival is directly tied to how effectively he can dismantle the levers of foreign control before they are used against him. Unlike past leaders who tried to gradually transition their nations away from Western influence, he has taken the most radical step of all, cutting ties immediately and without compromise. This is why assassination attempts against him have been relentless. Burkina Faso was never meant to stand on its own, but under his leadership, it is proving that true independence is possible, and that is a risk the West cannot afford to take. What makes Traoré even more dangerous in the eyes of the global elite is that he is not just resisting, he is winning. Despite the media propaganda labeling him a dictator, despite the economic warfare designed to weaken his government, despite coup attempts and assassination plots, he remains in power. His people support him, his military stands by him, and his policies are showing results. The longer he survives, the more Burkina Faso becomes an example for other African nations to follow. If he succeeds, the consequences for Western influence in Africa will be irreversible. This is no longer just about one man or one country. This is about the survival of an empire that has relied on African subjugation for centuries. If Traoré continues to challenge the global power structure without being stopped, other leaders will begin to realize that they too can defy the West and win. That is why he is being targeted. It is not just because he refuses to be controlled, but because he represents the beginning of a revolution that could reshape the balance of power on the African continent. For those who have built their wealth, influence, and military dominance on the assumption that Africa will always be divided, weak, and dependent, Traoré is not just a problem. He is an existential threat. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. We all know that money rules the world. It decides wars, topples governments, and even fuels the greatest rivalries in history. When the economy shifts, so does power. And that is exactly why Traoré is a threat. He isn't just resisting the West, he is pulling Burkina Faso out of the very system that keeps Africa controlled. Because Ibrahim Traoré is not just fighting for Burkina Faso's political independence. He is waging war against something far more insidious: economic slavery. For decades, African nations have been trapped in a carefully designed system of financial dependence, one where sovereignty exists on paper but not in reality. The real power does not lie in government offices or presidential palaces. It lies in the foreign-controlled banking institutions that decide how much a country can spend, what it can invest in, and who profits from its wealth. This is the system Traoré is threatening to dismantle, and that is precisely why he has been marked for elimination. Burkina Faso, like many former French colonies, has long been subjected to a financial arrangement that strips it of its economic autonomy. The West African CFA franc, a currency still controlled by France, ensures that a significant portion of Burkina Faso's wealth is held in French banks. Every major financial decision, whether to build roads, invest in agriculture, or expand the military, requires approval from institutions that do not answer to the Burkinabe people. This system was not designed to help Burkina Faso thrive. It was designed to keep it in check, ensuring that real power remained in Paris, not Ouagadougou. Traoré understands that as long as Burkina Faso remains tied to this system, its independence is an illusion. That is why he has made it his mission to sever these financial chains completely. His government has already begun discussions about adopting an alternative currency, one that is not under Western control. More importantly, he is pushing for Burkina Faso's economy to be based on real assets rather than foreign loans. Gold, agriculture, and industrial production are the resources that can make the country self-reliant. But for decades, they have been extracted and exported on terms dictated by multinational corporations. Traoré's leadership is a direct attack on this system. He has moved to reclaim control over Burkina Faso's gold production, renegotiating or outright canceling exploitative contracts with Western companies. He has prioritized domestic food production, reducing dependence on imports that keep Burkina Faso vulnerable to economic pressure. He has begun shifting trade partnerships away from Europe and toward alternative allies like Russia, China, and BRICS nations that are willing to do business without colonial-style conditions attached. This is economic warfare at the highest level. By taking back control of Burkina Faso's wealth, Traoré is not just making a political statement. He is challenging the very foundation of Western economic dominance in Africa. And that is something the empire cannot afford to tolerate. Traoré has made it clear that he will not play by those rules. He has chosen a path that threatens the entire global economic order, and the response has been swift. Western-controlled financial institutions have begun tightening restrictions on Burkina Faso, making it more difficult for the country to conduct international transactions. Foreign corporations that once profited from Burkina Faso's resources are now lobbying their governments to take action against him. Sanctions, economic isolation, and trade restrictions. All of these tools are being prepared as a way to punish his defiance. But Traoré is not backing down. He knows that if Burkina Faso can achieve true economic independence, it will set an example for the rest of Africa. If his policies succeed, other nations will realize that they too can take control of their resources, reject exploitative foreign contracts, and build economies that serve their people rather than foreign investors. That is the real reason why he is being targeted. His assassination is not just about removing a political opponent. It is about preventing a revolution that could spread beyond Burkina Faso's borders. For the empire to maintain control, Traoré must be stopped. But for Africa to reclaim its future, he must survive. But how will he save himself and Africa? Ibrahim Traoré understands something that many leaders before him failed to grasp in time. Political power means nothing without military loyalty. Across Africa, countless leaders have risen with grand ambitions of independence, only to be overthrown by their armed forces, manipulated and financed by foreign powers. The West has mastered the art of regime change, not by direct invasion but by engineering internal betrayals. This is why assassination attempts against Traoré have not only come from external threats, but from within his own country. Every coup attempt and every failed plot to remove him has involved individuals within the military structure itself. That is how the empire operates. It does not need to send its soldiers. It simply buys the loyalty of those already in uniform. Burkina Faso has a long history of military coups, most of them shaped by external forces. France, in particular, has wielded immense influence over the country's armed forces for decades. Through training programs, intelligence sharing agreements, and direct funding, Western nations have systematically cultivated a network of military officers loyal not to their own country, but to foreign interests. Traoré's rise to power disrupted that balance. His refusal to cooperate with Western governments was not just a diplomatic shift. It was a declaration of military independence. The immediate consequence was the unraveling of long-standing foreign influence within the Burkinabe army. Military officials who had once enjoyed comfortable relationships with Western embassies suddenly found themselves isolated. Their sources of funding were cut off, their privileges revoked, their direct lines to foreign intelligence agencies severed. From that moment, the clock began ticking. A leader who governs without the backing of the empire's military network is a leader who will eventually be targeted for removal. This is the reality that Traoré faces daily. He knows that every officer he commands could be a potential asset to his enemies. Every military meeting could be infiltrated, and every promotion must be carefully considered. A single weak link, a single well-placed traitor, could open the door to his downfall. This is why Traoré has moved aggressively to secure his military power. Unlike past leaders who naively assumed loyalty could be maintained through tradition or rank, he has taken a proactive, ruthless approach. The first phase of his strategy was a deep purge of military personnel suspected of foreign ties. Several officers, previously trained in Western military academies and known for their relationships with foreign diplomats, were quietly removed from their posts. Some were reassigned to less strategic roles, while others were dismissed altogether. But Traoré did not stop there. He understood that purging potential threats was not enough. He needed a military force that was loyal to him personally, not just to the government. To achieve this, he took a page from history. Instead of relying on the traditional command structure, he began building elite units composed of soldiers personally selected for their loyalty. These units are not just bodyguards. They are highly trained forces tasked with protecting the government from both internal and external threats. Their primary role is not to fight insurgents, but to ensure that Burkina Faso's leadership remains secure from Western-backed infiltration. The second phase of his strategy was strengthening military ties with nations that do not have a history of overthrowing African leaders. Traoré has deepened defense cooperation with Russia, securing military advisors who specialize in counter-coup operations. He has also forged closer ties with Mali and Niger, both of which have recently expelled Western military forces and are now working to create a self-sufficient security alliance. This regional military bloc, if fully realized, could become the greatest challenge to Western military dominance in West Africa. But these moves have not gone unnoticed. The West sees what Traoré is building, and they are not willing to let it stand. Intelligence leaks suggest that Western powers have been actively recruiting military officers within Burkina Faso's ranks, offering financial incentives, foreign asylum, and promises of power in exchange for cooperation. These efforts have already resulted in multiple coup attempts, each one foiled by Traoré's intelligence network before it could take shape. The desperation of Traoré's enemies is clear. The usual methods of control have failed. The Western-backed political opposition has no real influence. Economic pressure has not weakened his resolve. Media campaigns have not turned the people against him. This leaves only one option: a direct military coup. The challenge for Traoré is that he must remain vigilant at all times. A coup attempt does not need to come from a general. It can come from a mid-level officer, a well-placed intelligence operative, or even a trusted advisor. Every coup in history has started with a small circle of conspirators, working in secrecy until the moment is right to strike. Burkina Faso's capital could fall in a single night if the right people are bribed, blackmailed, or manipulated into betraying their leader. This is why Traoré does not govern with blind trust. He knows that power is a battlefield, and only those who are willing to eliminate threats before they materialize can survive in a world where Western intelligence agencies work tirelessly to orchestrate regime change. The next move against him will not come in the form of a public declaration. It will happen in the shadows, behind closed doors, within the very institutions he commands. But if history has proven anything, it is that Traoré is not an easy man to overthrow. He does not react. He anticipates. The question is, can he stay ahead of his enemies indefinitely? Or will the empire's long-standing tradition of military-engineered coups finally catch up with him? Remember, Ibrahim Traoré is not just a problem for France. He is not just a headache for Western corporations losing their grip on Burkina Faso's wealth. He is a direct challenge to the Western-controlled global order, and that is why some of the most powerful institutions in the world are aligning against him. At the center of this war is NATO. While officially an alliance created for military defense, NATO has increasingly been used to enforce Western dominance across the globe. It was NATO forces that bombed Libya in 2011, toppling Muammar Gaddafi under the pretense of protecting human rights. It was NATO-aligned intelligence agencies that manipulated uprisings across Africa and the Middle East, turning local discontent into full-scale regime change operations. Now those same forces are watching Traoré, assessing whether he is too much of a threat to leave in power. For NATO and its allies, Traoré is a geostrategic nightmare. Burkina Faso is a small, landlocked country, but its position in West Africa makes it an important link between resource-rich nations and global markets. More importantly, Traoré is not acting alone. His alliance with Mali and Niger is creating a new military and economic bloc that is actively working to remove Western influence from the region. If this alliance succeeds, it could set off a domino effect, leading to more African nations following suit. That is the real danger Traoré represents. Not just a single leader, but an inspiration for an entire continent. Western governments are actively coordinating with Burkinabe opposition groups and exiled politicians, offering financial support and diplomatic backing for a possible return to power. Intelligence leaks have revealed Western diplomats meeting with high-ranking officials from Burkina Faso's military, probing for weaknesses, identifying potential allies in a future coup attempt. This is how the empire operates, not through direct invasions, but by engineering collapses from within. At the same time, economic warfare has intensified. Burkina Faso's gold exports, once controlled by Western companies, are now being redirected toward China, Russia, and Middle Eastern buyers. This shift has outraged Western financial elites, who see Traoré as not only rejecting their influence, but actively working against them. If Burkina Faso successfully transitions into an economy that is independent of the West, it will prove that Western control over African resources is not unbreakable. France, in particular, has taken the lead in orchestrating efforts against Traoré. French intelligence agencies have a long history of removing African leaders who threaten French economic dominance. Their playbook is well documented: financial destabilization, media disinformation, diplomatic isolation, and, when all else fails, direct military intervention. While the United States has taken a more cautious approach, there is growing pressure within Washington to act against Traoré. The U.S. sees Burkina Faso as an increasingly valuable piece in its strategic chessboard, particularly as competition with China and Russia intensifies. The Pentagon views Traoré's alliance with Russia's military advisors as a serious threat to Western influence in Africa. If Burkina Faso fully aligns with Russia and China, it could provide a foothold for these powers to further expand their presence across the continent, weakening Western control. The European Union, meanwhile, has been debating economic sanctions as a way to strangle Traoré's government into submission. This would follow a familiar pattern: cut Burkina Faso off from Western financial markets, manipulate global commodity prices to hurt its economy, and create artificial scarcity to trigger internal discontent. But here is where things become complicated for the West. Traoré has anticipated these moves, and so far, he has been stronger than any other leader in Africa. But the question remains, how long can he survive these threats? Let us know in the comment section. Will he start exposing the names of individuals behind all this now? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.